So on my calendar today, July 10th, 2021, is listed as Gundicha Marjanam. Marjanam means cleansing. Gundicha, my understanding is, Gundicha was the name of the wife of Maharaj Indradyumna. And so he built a temple in her name. And it's a very famous temple in the Vaishnava world, in Jagannath Puri. So we'll read from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela, chapter 12, entitled The Cleansing of the Gundicha Temple. I have more copies here if you want to follow along. Okay.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So this is chapter 12 of the Madhya Leela, entitled The Cleansing of the Gundicha Temple. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jai Dvaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jai Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jai Dvaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Dvaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Vande Sri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodidal Godadaya Pushpad Bantel Chitrel Sandel Tamonudal. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sri Nityananda Prabhu, who are just like the sun and the moon. They have arisen simultaneously on the horizon of Gauda to dissipate the darkness of ignorance in this age of Kali and to wonderfully bestow benediction upon all. Panchatattva Makam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Svupakam Bhaktavatam Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. So, Om Gana Timiranda Shikananjana Shalakya Chakshunali Tamina Tasmai Sri Gurve Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so we're gonna start on text 72 of chapter 12. Text 72 of chapter 12. Okay. Pratame Kashi Mishre Prabhu Bola Ila Padicha Patra Sarva Bome Bolana Anila. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu first of all called for Kashi Mishra, then for the superintendent of the temple, then for Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. When these three people came before the Lord, he begged them to wash the temple, known as Gundicha. I'm going to text 74 now. Upon hearing the Lord's request for them to wash the Gundicha temple, the Padicha, the superintendent of the temple said, "My dear sir, we are all your servants. Whatever you desire is our duty to perform." The king gave a special order for me to do without delay whatever your lordship orders. Okay. Yes, so we're good. All right, so this is a text 76. My dear Lord, washing the temple is not service befitting you. Nonetheless, if you wish to do so, it is to be accepted as one of your pastimes. To wash the temple, you need many water pots and brooms. Therefore, order me. I can immediately bring all these things to you. Okay, so some context. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahe Anya is he is Radha and Krishna combined. He's an avatar. He's the Chana avatar. Krishna Varnam Tusha Krishnam Sango Pangasta Parshadam Yage Sankirtana Priya Yujanti Sumedasaha. And he appeared to rejuvenate Bhakti Yoga. Of course, Prabhupada brought his movement to the West. So Lord Chaitanya is Krishna appearing in the form of a devotee of Krishna. So he's showing us how to do it. Like Krishna, appearing about 5,200 years ago, spoke Bhagavad Gita, and he gave engage in devotional service to me. So Lord Chaitanya is Krishna coming as a devotee of Krishna, and he's saying, okay, now here's how to do it. Srila Prabhupada sometimes give the example, like a teacher might sometimes come to the students, maybe the 5-year-olds, and go, okay, so here's how to write the letters. A, B, C, like that. Now the teacher doesn't need to practice how to write the letters, but the teachers sometimes will instruct the students how to do it, but sometimes they'll go, here's how you do it. So Lord Chaitanya is Krishna coming and saying, okay, here's how you do Bhakti Yoga, and he's actually writing the letters. And so here he's showing us how to clean, like to actually clean. It's quite an intense pastime. Lots for me to learn there. And so it's literal, it's cleaning, and it's also metaphorical, as the purports get into. It's about cleaning our hearts. And as we'll see here, to actually clean our hearts, it requires heavy lifting. That as conditioned souls, conditioned means our hearts aren't clean. Before I started reading Prabhupada's books, it never occurred to me that my heart's not clean. So that's a disadvantage of reading Prabhupada's books. Okay. No, really, before I started practicing Krishna consciousness, I thought, clean my heart. What? Like, why would my heart be anything other than completely clean? So then we find here that, no, so this is, so Gundicha Marjan, it's a real pastime, real historical fact. Actually, in 1988, the first time I visited India, I went to Jagannath Puri, and I couldn't get in the Gundicha temple because of skin color, that's the whole thing. But next to, near the Gundicha temple, there's a Gaudiya Mat temple, and a group of us, we had prasadam at the Gaudiya Mat temple, just near the Gundicha temple. And so, it's real. It's also not really, but also about, just like Krishna's pastimes are real, killing Putana and Aghasura demon, they're real, and we can also get metaphorical understanding from them. Like the Pralambasura, that Pralambasura, Balaram got on his back, and he thought Pralambasura was a cowherd boy, but then Pralambasura took him away from the devotees. And then Balaram realized, this is not my friend. He's taking me away from the devotees. So there can be so many things that look nice, good, spiritual, woo-woo. They can look so many things, but we want to see, are they actually taking me away from the cowherd boys? Are they actually enhancing my affection for Srila Prabhupada? And if they're taking us away, then we can do like Balaram, who just smashed the Pralambasura. Okay, so so the Gundicha temple, cleaning our hearts, it requires for a condition means I'm full of envy, means I'm full of laziness, and I'm full of lust and greed. unclean stuff that's not natural for the pure soul. So it means like just on my own, if I just go with the flow, my heart won't get cleansed. It means like focusing in, and we'll see here, requires elbow grease. There's that term, elbow grease, to really cleanse our hearts, intense focus. So this chapter is very much a Maha Mega advanced course if we pay attention. Yeah. Okay, so text 77. Kintu gata samarjani bahuta chahiye agyadeha aji saba ihan ani diye. To wash the temple, you need many water pots and brooms. Therefore order me. I can immediately bring all these things to you. As soon as the superintendent understood the desire of the Lord, he immediately delivered 100 new water pots and 100 brooms for sweeping the temple. The next day, early in the morning, the Lord took his personal associates with him and, with his own hand, smeared sandalwood pulp on their bodies. He then gave each devotee a broom with his own hand, and taking all of them personally with him, the Lord went to Gundicha. In this way, the Lord and his associates went to cleanse the Gundicha temple. At first, they cleansed the temple with the brooms. The Lord cleansed everything inside the temple very nicely, including the ceiling. He then took up the sitting place, Singhasan, cleansed it, and again put it in its original place. Chotabada Mandira Koila Marjana Shodana Pache Taiche Shodira Shri Jagamohana. Thus the Lord and his companions cleansed and swept all the temple's buildings, big and small, and finally cleansed the area between the temple and the meeting place. Indeed, hundreds of devotees were engaged in cleansing all around the temple, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was personally carrying out the operation just to instruct others. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu washed and cleansed the temple in great jubilation, chanting the holy name of Lord Krishna all the time. Similarly, all the devotees were also chanting and at the same time performing their respective duties. The entire beautiful body of the Lord was covered with dust and dirt. In this way, it became transcendentally beautiful. At times, when cleansing the temple, the Lord shed tears, and in some places, he even cleansed with those tears. After this, the place where the deity's food was kept, Bhoga Mandira, was cleansed. Then the yard was cleansed, and then all the residential quarters, one after the other. After Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu collected all the straw, dust, and grains of sand in one place, he gathered it all in his cloth and threw it outside. Following the example of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all the devotees in great jubilation began to gather straws and dust with their own cloths and throw them outside the temple. The Lord then told the devotees, I can tell how much you have labored and how well you have cleansed the temple simply by seeing all the straw and dust you have collected outside. Even though all the devotees collected dirt in one pile, the dirt collected by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was much greater. After the inside of the temple was cleansed, the Lord again allotted areas for the devotees to cleanse. The Lord then ordered everyone to cleanse the inside of the temple very perfectly by taking finer dust, straws, and grains of sand and throwing them outside. After Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all the Vaishnava cleansed the temple for the second time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very happy to see the cleansing work. Sometimes there's the analogy, just like to say, oh, okay, yeah, I'll clean this room. And this should take about half an hour. So I cleaned the room, but after half an hour, then there was all these, I rearranged the pillows, but then all these billows of dust. There's that old sandwich under the bed. I didn't realize that was there. After half an hour, then we realized, no, this is probably a 3-day job if I really want to do it. So they all cleansed for the first time, and then, okay, let's, because we can get like maybe some gross anartas. Yes, Malini.
You can finish your sentence.
Oh, yeah, we might clean some gross inartas, like a behavioral inarta to be like, I'm not killing animals and eating them like that. Then as we progress, then more and more subtle dust is brought to our awareness.
We hear a lot from many Christian people that the work we can do in our heart is not that big, and that really the real work of clearing the anartha is done by the grace of the Lord. I hear that a lot from Christian people.
Okay.
There is limitation to the, and I'm wondering, when that verse, when he says that Lord Chaitanya's pile was way bigger than even the combined pile of all his disciples and followers, in terms of the analogy, if that's relevant in that way.
Well, thank you, Melanie. Yeah, yes. Well, I think it gets into, in Christian terminology, the discussion of works and faith, right? It's like by my works. So sure, ultimately it's by the grace of Krishna, by the grace of Lord Chaitanya, by the grace of Srila Prabhupada that we can cleanse anything in our heart. And then, the common saying, work like everything depends on us, pray like everything depends on Krishna. We can, so many examples are coming to my mind. There's the example of the great bird Garuda, the carrier of Vishnu, and the sparrow. So the ocean took the sparrow's eggs away. And so the sparrow wanted to get its eggs back, its children. So the sparrow, with its little beak, started trying to empty the ocean to get its eggs back. So the ocean didn't take it very seriously. What can the sparrow do? But the sparrow was so sincere that its elder brother Garuda came, and Garuda said, okay, ocean, if you don't give the sparrow's eggs back, I'll empty you. And then the ocean okay, I get it. So sure, of course it's higher powers or so much, they can collect so many piles of dust more than us. At the same time, they're not obliged, but they naturally reciprocate with soft-heartedness when they see our sincerity. Because it's sometimes, yes, I'm saying because I can say, Krishna, please reveal and take away all my maya, all my illusion, all my envy, all my lust and material desires, please, Krishna. Well, not all my maya. I mean, some of it. I mean, reveal. So how sincere am I to really clean my heart? Of course, it's up to Krishna, sure. But Krishna is not dependent on us, but out of Krishna's compassion, Prabhupada's compassion, then they reciprocate with our desire. There's a quote I heard attributed to Saint Augustine. Saint Augustine said, "Oh Lord, give me chastity, but not just yet." Okay. So, right. So, yeah. So once we commit, then providence moves. So Krishna, Srimati Radharani, they're looking, how committed are we? How intentional are we to cleanse our hearts? Then we're intentional, then okay, then they do it. Okay, Srinvatam Svakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Vidan Stoy Bhadrane Vidunati Suritsetam. So of course, Sri Krishna, the super soul in our hearts, cleanses our hearts. And our responsibility, our opportunity is to become sincere, to show Krishna, yes, that's real. I don't want to hold on to this nonsense garbage anymore. It's making me miserable, it's making others miserable. Does that respond to your question, Mama?
Yeah. It seems like, the work we can do with everything in the material atmosphere is kind of tiny and small.
Yeah.
doing the work of Anartha Nivritti. However, we need to be sincere in doing it. It's
Yeah.
our responsibility to be sincere. And because it's limited, then through our sincerity, then Krishna may come and create situation that does the bigger works that need to be done. And then that's why maybe we can interpret the pile of Lord Chaitanya to be way bigger than the accumulated pile of all the devotees in the temple.
Thank you. I like that. Thank you, Melanie. Okay. So we're on text 95. Ara Shata Jana Shata Gate Jalabari Pratame Lana Ache Kala Apekshakari. While the temple was being swept, about 100 men stood ready with filled water pots, and they simply awaited the Lord's order to throw them. Jala anabali abe Mahaprabhu Kaila Tabe Shatagata Ani Prabhu Agedila. As soon as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu called for water, all the men immediately brought the 100 water pots, which were completely filled, and delivered them before the Lord. Pratame Kavila Prabhu Mandira Prakshalana Ordva Ado Biti Griha Madhya Simhasana. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu first washed the main temple, and then thoroughly washed the ceiling, the walls, the floor, the sitting place, Singhasan, and everything else within the room. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself and his devotees began to throw water onto the ceiling. When this water fell, it washed the walls and floor. Then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to wash the sitting place of Lord Jagannath with his own hands, and all the devotees began to bring water to the Lord. All the devotees within the temple began to wash. Each one had a broom in his hand, and in this way they cleansed the temple of the Lord. Someone brought water to pour into the hands of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and someone poured water on his lotus feet. The water that fell from the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was drunk by someone who hid himself. Someone else begged for that water, and another person was giving that water in charity. After the room was washed, the water was let out through an outlet, and it then flowed and filled the yard outside. The Lord mopped the rooms with his own clothes, and he polished the throne with them also. In this way, all the rooms were cleansed with 100 water pots. After the rooms had been cleansed, the minds of the devotees were as clean as the rooms. Nirmala Shitala Snigdha Karila Mandire Apanaridaya Yena Darila Bahire. When the temple was cleansed, it was purified, cool and pleasing, just as if the Lord's own pure mind had appeared. Since hundreds of men were engaged in bringing water from the lake, there was no place to stand on the banks. Consequently, someone began to draw water from a well. Hundreds of devotees brought water in the pots, and hundreds took the empty pots away to fill them up again. With the exception of Nityananda Prabhu Advaitacharya, Swarup Damodar, Brahmananda Bharati, and Paramananda Puri, everyone was engaged in filling the water pots and bringing them there. Many of the water pots were broken when people collided with one another, and hundreds of men had to bring new water pots to fill. Some people were filling the pots and others were washing the rooms, but everyone was engaged in chanting the holy name of Krishna and Hari. One person begged for a water pot by chanting the holy names Krishna, Krishna, and another delivered a pot while chanting Krishna, Krishna. Whenever anyone had to speak, he did so by uttering the holy name of Krishna. Consequently, the holy name of Krishna became an indication for everyone who wanted something. Prema Veshe Prabhu Kahe Krishna Krishna Nam Ekale Prema Veshe Kare Shata Generakam. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was vibrating the holy name of Krishna in ecstatic love, he himself was performing the work of hundreds of men. It appeared as though Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were cleansing and washing with 100 hands. He approached everyone just to teach them how to work. When he saw someone doing nicely, the Lord praised him. But if he saw that someone was not working to his satisfaction, he immediately chastised that person, not bearing him any grudge. The Lord would say, "You have done well. Please teach this to others, so that they may act in the same way." As soon as they heard Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu say this, everyone became ashamed. Thus they began to work with great attention. They washed the Jagamohan area and then the place where food was kept. All other places were also washed. In this way, the meeting place was washed, the entire yard, the raised sitting places, the kitchen, and every other room. Thus, all places around the temple were thoroughly washed within and without. After everything was thoroughly washed, a Vaishnava from Bengal, who was very intelligent and simple, interesting combination, came and poured water on the lotus feet of the Lord. We'll continue with this pastime. I just thought there's a pastime of Srila Prabhupada, and in the early days, maybe 1966, New York, and it was like, so as we discussed, so Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's Krishna appearing as a devotee of Krishna to show us practically how to do bhakti yoga and how to do it in excellence. So in the early days, so I was like after a prasadam feast, and one of the, I don't know if it was a disciple or just someone helping, was washing the pots, and like the pots had some thick stains after the cooking, and so there was pot that required a lot of work, and someone cleaned it and showed it. Prabhupada was referred to as Swamiji at the time, showed it to Swamiji and said, "Okay, I did it." And Prabhupada appreciated, said, "Oh, you've done very nice. Now, if you could just get this spot here, thank you." And then it happened 3 or 4. They brought it, "Okay, we did it." And Prabhupada was so appreciative. "Oh, you did very nice. Now, if you could just get this spot on the bottom, like that." So similarly, Lord Chaitanya is appreciating and indicating where, okay, now you've not quite given 100% yet. And for our actual freedom, from the bondage of material miseries, requires 100% dedication. So now,
I just wanted to make a small comment, something that
yes.
happened when we were reading, is that the Godicha temple, like the Lord and everybody they were taking buckets and throwing them to the ceiling.
Yeah.
And I was thinking how, even when I went to India, a lot of the way the buildings are made is allow big cleansing like that.
Yeah.
Now in the West, we are so not focused on cleanliness because I couldn't do that in my house. It will ruin my house. So I need to do my whole house. And I was trying to make a parallel between like, okay, well, we have the culture. So the Vedic culture in the heart coming from here. And like in the Western world, like, yeah, we don't have a lot of hope for cleanliness in a sense because maybe we are built in a way that will be wounding us if we are going into. So we really need the mercy of the Lord.
Yeah, Prabhupada would sometimes say that our hearts are like charcoal. We can cleanse charcoal, but we get to more dark stuff like that. At the same time, yeah, I appreciate that analogy because we also like in the Arab villages, the houses are built like they were built 1,500 years ago, and they were designed for this sort of cleansing. So even in terms of external cleaning, Prabhupada brought quite a different paradigm. Prabhupada brought and there's many pastimes with his disciples where his disciples weren't getting like the Vedic conception of cleaning and trying to apply Western understanding with whatever, and antiseptic sprays and things like that. Yeah, so right. So our like when I started speaking today, I said like growing up, until I came to Prabhupada's books, I had no conception of clean my heart. Like, but I think even the Sanskrit language, it's filled of awareness of the need for conditioned souls to clean our heart. You know? That's why it's like religion as we think of it. Like, no, this isn't religion, right? It's something you believe. It's something you join. You play bingo on Sundays or something like that. But no, it's a process of cleansing the heart. It's a process, and even the language brings that to consciousness. Ladini Shakti.
Can I also say something?
Yes.
I'm very happy that we have this pastime today. It's one of my favorites. And it's beeping. I can go. Thank you. Yeah, what I want to say is just I'm thinking about this a lot, about the cleansing of the temple and like how it relates to cleansing of the heart.
Yeah.
And it comes to me again and again when I'm here. It's like when we prepare the seminar, we come to some place and it's like really doesn't look like very sattvic or nice. And usually, very often when I was stuffing the seminars, I was like thinking like the seminar can like never happen here. It's just like such a gross place. But then like everything gets cleaned and organized and then all of a sudden the energy of the room completely changes.
Yeah.
I have this experience so many times. And then as the energy of the room changes, also the experience in the mind changes. And immediately the seminar doesn't even begin yet. I'm cleaning here in Malini's home. And then the next morning, Dr. Eze told me, my japa was so much better today. And I had the same experience, and then we were speaking about it, and we thought, like, yes, it's like it's maybe the reason that like the cleanliness is close to godliness, and yes, we are far from like Vedic culture cleanliness. I can see that, like using the same sponge for all sorts of things that they would never like do it like this, but still.
Thanks very much for that sharing, Ladini. Yeah, sometimes Prabhupada talks about internal leads to external and external leads to internal. So we cleanse our heart, then naturally we act in a way that our external environment is clean. And similarly, it's like whatever the condition of our heart, let's take action. I like the seminar room example, what you just shared about Eze's comment. We take action let's clean this room. Let's clean this, what's going to be the seminar room. Let's clean this home. Let's clean this ashram. And then, wow, this is such a more potent place. It's a sanctuary. It's a sacred place. It's such a more potent place to chant Hare Krishna, Chaitanya Charitamrita, as opposed to if there's dirt, dust, and clutter. So it's very synergistic, internal and external. Thanks for that. I'm looking at myself in this regard. Areas for lots of growth, internally and externally. Right. Actually, when Jeremy was here, he was asking me about some standards with the sponges and the towels. And I started to show him, and then I just say, I said, if Marie or Ladini are here, I kind of pretend to have some standards, but actually, anyway, personal sharing. Okay. Okay. So now this is the pastime of the Vaishnava friend Bengal. I like this. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is describing him. Yes. Thank you for that, Jim. Hare Krishna. Thanks for on the chat. Jim wrote, I really need to deep clean my apartment to get rid of some clutter. Hare Krishna. I relate to you, Jim, personally. I resonate with what you're talking about. So intelligent and simple, because we can think, oh, intelligent, it's because there's that distinction between simple and simplistic or simple-minded. But simple is really intelligent. It means like I'm able to pierce through all the artificial complexity of the drama of life and simply focus on what's vitally important and live purposefully. And I don't get distracted by the, Prabhupada uses this wonderful term, the unnecessary necessities. Right? Somehow Walmart comes to mind. It's like this entire city of unnecessary necessities. But they are a necessity. Of course we need what's on that shelf. Of course we need. So simple means like I'm simply focused on vital, eternal principles and living simply, purposefully. Sejalalana pane pana koila tahade ki prabhura mane dukkha rosha hoila. The Gaudiya Vaishnava then took that water and drank it himself. Seeing that, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt a little unhappy and was also outwardly angry. Although the Lord was certainly satisfied with him, he became angry externally in order to establish the etiquette of religious principles. The Lord then called Swarup Damodar and told him, just see the behavior of your Bengali Vaishnav. This person from Bengal has washed my feet within the temple of the personality of Godhead. Not only that, but he has drunk the water himself. I now do not know what my destination is because of this offense. Indeed, your Bengali Vaishnav has greatly implicated me. Lord Chaitanya's, he's really feeling very loving, but he's showing anger. So in the purport, Prabhupada writes, it is significant that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Swarup Damodar Goswami that the Bengali Vaishnav was your Bengali Vaishnav. This means that all Gaudiya Vaishnavas who are followers of the Chaitanya cult are subordinate to Swarup Damodar Goswami. So this pastime and many pastimes in Chaitanya Charitamrita and this purport emphasizes this is a very important personality for any sincere follower of Prabhupada, sincere follower of Lord Chaitanya, Swarup Damodar Goswami. So he's the sort of personality we ought to get to know. Also, I'll notice Prabhupada is not shy or apprehensive to use the word cult, right? So this means that all Gaudiya Vaishnavas who are followers of the Chaitanya cult are subordinate to Swarup Damodar Goswami. So we can just cult as in culture. Yeah, this is the finest culture that I know of. Cult as in culture. It's a culture, right? Okay. Like there's the culture of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. There's the culture of the Gator Nation. So in the culture of the Gator Nation, they would think this is some weird cult. But actually, when Prabhupada was here on the campus of University of Florida, he spoke on the Plaza of Americans, and he was in some place called Gainesville, Florida, and he referred to even here in this remote corner of the world. Imagine calling the center of the universe, Alachua County, Florida, a remote corner of the world. Imagine, okay? But actually, so this, now we're talking about these pastimes. This is the actual center of the universe. And as we practice Gaudiya Vaishnavism more and more, this process of cleansing the heart, then other things fade in importance. And this becomes the real life of the soul. This process of awakening the soul to its original life, this is a culture of self-realization. Yeah, like Malini sharing a few minutes ago. Yeah, it's a culture of internal and external cleanliness throughout. So Prabhupada continues in the purport. This is Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Chapter 12, text 127. The Parampara system is very strictly observed by Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's personal secretary was Swarup Damodar Goswami. The next group of devotees was the 6 Goswamis, then Kaviraj Goswami. It is necessary to observe the Parampara system of the Chaitanya cult. There are many offenses one can commit while serving the Lord, and these are described in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Hari Bhakti Vilas, and other books. According to the rules and regulations, no one should accept obeisances in the temple of the Lord before the deity, nor is it proper for a devotee to offer obeisances and touch the feet of the spiritual master before the deity. This is considered an offense. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself was personally the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, it was not actually offensive to wash his lotus feet in the temple. However, because he was playing the part of an acharya, the Lord considered himself an ordinary human being. He also wanted to give instructions to ordinary human beings. The point is that even though one plays the part of a spiritual master, he should not accept obeisances or permit a disciple to wash his feet before the deity. This is a matter of etiquette. Again, Lord Chaitanya is an avatar, is Krishna himself, showing us how to be a devotee of Krishna. Tabe Swarupa Gosani Tara Gade Hatadiya Dekamare Purira Bahira Rakilena Lana. At this point, Swarup Damodar Goswami caught the Gaudiya Vaishnava by the neck and, giving him a little push, ejected him from the Gundicha Puri temple and made him stay outside. After Swarup Damodar Goswami returned within the temple, he requested Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to excuse that innocent person. After this incident, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very satisfied. He then asked all of the devotees to sit down in 2 lines on both sides. The Lord then personally sat down in the middle and picked up all kinds of straw, grains of sand, and dirty things. While Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was picking up the straws and grains of sand, he said, I shall gather everyone's collection, and I shall ask whoever has collected less than all the others to pay a fine of sweet cakes and sweet rice. Transcendental competition here. In this way, all the quarters of the Gundicha temple were completely cleansed and cleared. All quarters were cool and spotless, like one's cleansed and pacified mind. When the water from the different rooms was finally let out through the halls, it appeared as if new rivers were rushing out to meet the waters of the ocean. E mata puradvara age patiyata sakala shotilataha ke barnibe kata. Outside the gateway of the temple, all the roads were cleansed, and no one could tell exactly how this was done. So this is, I think I'll close my reading here by reading this purport. It's a classic purport about pulling the weeds from the garden of the heart. This is a different analogy. This is the analogy of cleansing. It's the same principle as the garden analogy. We use that terminology a lot in Safito programs, pulling the weeds from the garden of the heart. And the principle is, just like in a garden, sure, we want to water, and the plants get sunlight, and the flowers get nourishment and nice soil. But if we don't pull the weeds, then the weeds strangle the flowers, and then the water goes to the weeds. So even if we're doing water processes, meditation or chanting, chanting itself is so powerful, it brings up the weeds, and then we get to drop them, we get to pull them. But if we don't, because we're attached to them, then even if we chant Hare Krishna or read shlokas and sing kirtan, it can feed the weeds of arrogance and superiority. The watering process can water the weeds, so that's why pulling the weeds is vital, and water. If we just pull the weeds and don't water, that can get into some personal growth attempts, like you look at that and, be honest about this, all of that. But if there's not a watering process, chanting Hare Krishna, no weeds, no flowers, that's like a desert. That's not desired either. So we went watering and pulling the weeds. So this is, I over the decades, I found this purport to be very profound for me. In commenting on the cleansing of the Gundicha temple, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was personally giving instructions on how one should receive Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, within one's cleansed and pacified heart. If one wants to see Krishna seated in his heart, he must first cleanse the heart as prescribed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his Shikshastaka, Chikto Darpanam Marjanam. We can see that word marjanam in that verse. The cleansing, this chapter is called Gundicha Marjanam, the cleansing of the Gundicha temple. In this age, everyone's heart is unclean, as confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam, Vidyantastoya Bhadrani. To wash all dirty things accumulated within the heart, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised everyone to chant the Hare Krishna mantra. The first result will be that the heart is cleansed. Chaito Darpana Marjanam. Similarly, Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.17 also confirms this statement. Shinvatam Svakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanam Vidyantastoya Bhajani Vidunoti Saritsatam. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who relishes his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. If the devotee at all wants to cleanse his heart, he must chant and hear the glories of the Lord. Sri Krishna Srinvatam Svakata Krishna. This is a simple process. Krishna himself will help cleanse the heart because he is already seated there. Krishna wants to continue living within the heart, and the Lord wants to give directions, but one has to keep his heart as clean as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu kept the Gundicha temple. The devotee therefore has to cleanse his heart just as the Lord cleansed the Gundicha temple. In this way, one can be pacified and enriched in devotional service. If the heart is filled with straw, grains of sand, weeds, or dust, in other words, Anyabilashita Purna, one cannot enthrone the Supreme Personality of Godhead there. The heart must be cleansed of all material motives brought about through fruit of work, speculative knowledge, the mystic yoga system, and so many other forms of so-called meditation. The heart must be cleansed without ulterior motive. As Srila Rupa Goswami says, Anyabilashita Shunyam Jnana Karma Dinavritam. In other words, there should not be any external motive. One should not attempt material upliftment, understanding the Supreme by speculative knowledge, fruit of activity, severe austerity and penance, and so on. All these activities are against the natural growth of spontaneous love of Godhead. As soon as these are present within the heart should be understood to be unclean and therefore unfit to serve as Krishna's sitting place. We cannot perceive the Lord's presence in our hearts unless our hearts are cleansed. A material desire is explained as a desire to enjoy the material world to its fullest extent. In modern language, this is called economic development. An inordinate desire for economic development is considered to be like straws and grains of sand within the heart. If one is overly engaged in material activity, the heart will always remain disturbed. As stated by Narottam Das Thakur, Samsara Vishanale Divanishi Hiyajvale Judaite Na Koinu Upaya. In other words, endeavor for material opulence is against the principle of devotional service. Material enjoyment includes activities such as great sacrifices for auspicious activity, charity, austerity, elevation to the higher planetary system, and even living happily within the material world. Modernized material benefits are like the dust of material contamination. When the dust is agitated by the whirlwind of fruit of activity, it overcomes the heart. Thus, the mirror of the heart is covered with dust. There are many desires to perform auspicious and inauspicious activities, but people do not know how life after life they are keeping their hearts unclean. One who cannot give up the desire for fruitive activity is understood to be covered by the dust of material contamination. Karmis generally think that the interaction of fruitive activities can be countered by another karma or fruitive activity. This is certainly a mistaken conception. If one is deluded by such a conception, he is cheated by his own activity. Such activities have been compared to an elephant's bathing. An elephant may bathe very thoroughly, but as soon as it comes out of the river, it immediately takes some sand from the land and throws it all over its body. If one suffers due to his past fruitive activities, he cannot counteract his suffering by performing auspicious activities. The sufferings of human society cannot be counteracted by material plans. The only way suffering can be mitigated is by Krishna consciousness. When one takes to Krishna consciousness and engages himself in the devotional service of the Lord, beginning with chanting and hearing the glories of the Lord, the cleansing of the heart begins. Impersonal speculation, monism, merging into the existence of the Supreme, speculative knowledge, mystical yoga, and meditation are all compared to grains of sand. They simply cause irritation to the heart. No one can satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead by such activities, nor do we give the Lord a chance to sit in our hearts peacefully. Rather, the Lord is simply disturbed by them. Sometimes yogis and jnanis in the beginning take to the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra as a way to begin their various practices. However, when they falsely think that they have attained release from the bondage of material existence, they give up chanting. They do not consider that the ultimate goal is the form of the Lord or the name of the Lord. Such unfortunate creatures are never favored by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for they do not know what devotional service is. They're described in Bhagavad Gita in this way. Tanahan vishata kuran samsareshu naradamam Shipam yajashram ashubhan asharish veva yonishu. Those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, are cast by me into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life. From Bhagavad Gita 16.19. The demons are always envious of the Lord and are therefore most mischievous. By his practical example, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has shown us that all the grains of sand must be picked up thoroughly and thrown outside. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also cleansed the outside of the temple, fearing that the grains of sand would again come within. I'll just comment. For me, that relates to the principle of association. We can endeavor to cleanse our heart. At the same time, if we're associating intimately with persons who are not dedicated to this heart cleansing process, dedicated to bhakti yoga, then we're not going to progress. We're going to the heart will continue to generate grains of sand and dust or dirt. Now, of course, it doesn't mean like to live in a cave. So, like right now, we're associating with Srila Prabhupada, right? So we can be in the middle of so many environments in business, in recreation, in so many environments with persons who right now do not identify as practitioners of a serious spiritual process. But that doesn't mean we're taking their association. And the idea is to fill ourselves up with this cleansing process so that the osmosis goes the other way. Otherwise, if we intimately associate, it means we take their association. Like right now, we're receiving the association of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami, Srup Damodar Goswami, Srila Prabhupada. Okay, and then our heart's getting cleansed. So it's not just about associate. Doesn't just mean like who we're physically a few feet away from. But what are we in our consciousness? Are we absorbing their association through neediness or like that? So to cleanse the outside of the temple means we're conscious. This is such an important principle if we want to progress in this process, to be conscious of how we're associating. Not about putting up walls. It's about establishing flexible yet rigorous boundaries about who we associate and how we associate with them, such that everyone involved in all association is constantly advancing towards cleansing of heart, self-realization. So it's a very important principle. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Sarasvati Thakur explains that even though one may become free from the desire for fruitive activity, sometimes the subtle desire for fruitive activity comes into being within the heart. One often thinks of conducting business to improve devotional activity. Well, right now I don't have time to chant my rounds or read Prabhupada's books or come to programs, but I'm going to make $100 million and then I'm going to do so much devotional service. No, this mentality is pretty prevalent because there's the principle, go in like a pin and come out like a plow. But what also often happens is go in like a pin and get lost and never come out. Okay, go in like very quietly, and then in that sphere that we're in, then because we went in quietly, discreetly, intelligently, humbly, then we create, through the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, we create huge transformational effects in consciousness in particular spheres, whether it's academia or business or a particular social group or whatever. Go in like a pin, out like a plow. That's what Prabhupada did. He came with nothing. Prabhupada didn't first set up a multi-billion-dollar empire and then come to the West or something. He came in and then he's plowing Krishna consciousness and plowing the fields. But what often happens with rationalizations can be, yes, right now I don't have time for devotional activity, but I'll make a lot of money, and then we just get lost, and then oh yeah, my stocks went up. Oh, but this one went down. Oh, but now I need to do this. And then we're 80 years old and it never happened. Okay, we've seen lots of examples of this. Okay, the contamination. Okay, one often thinks of conducting business to improve devotional activity. However, the contamination is so strong that it may later develop into misunderstanding, described as kutinati, fault-finding, and pratishtasha, the desire for name and fame and for high position, jiva himsa, envy of other living entities, nischidachara, accepting things forbidden in the Shastra, kama, desire for material gain, and puja, hankering for popularity. The word kutinati means duplicity. As an example, one may attempt to imitate Srila Haridas Thakur by living in a solitary place. One's real desire may be for name and fame. In other words, one thinks that fools will accept one to be as good as Haridas Thakur just because one lives in a solitary place. These are all material desires. A neophyte devotee is certain to be attacked by other material desires as well, women and money. In this way, the heart is again filled with dirty things and becomes harder and harder, like that of a materialist. Gradually, one desires to become a reputed devotee or an avatar, an incarnation. Yes, I think I'll make that my goal. I'll become an avatar. The word jiva himsa, envy of other living entities, actually means stopping the preaching of Krishna consciousness. Very powerful statement there. I'll read it again. The word jiva himsa, envy of other living entities, actually means stopping the preaching of Krishna consciousness. Preaching work is described as paropakara, welfare activity for others. Those who are ignorant of the benefits of devotional service must be educated by preaching. If one stops preaching and simply sits down in a solitary place, he is engaging in material activity. If one desires to make a compromise with the Mayavadis, he is also engaged in material activity. A devotee should never make compromises with non-devotees. By acting as a professional guru, mystic yogi, or miracle man, one may cheat and bluff the general public and gain fame as a wonderful mystic, but all this is considered to be dust, straw, and grains of sand within the heart. In addition, One should follow the regulative principles and not desire illicit sex, gambling, intoxicants, and meat. To give us practical instructions, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu cleansed the temple twice. His second cleansing was more thorough. The idea was to throw away all the stumbling blocks on the path of devotional service. He cleansed the temple with firm conviction, as is evident from his using his own personal garments for cleaning. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to see personally that the temple was thoroughly cleansed, as clean as marble. Clean marble gives a cooling effect. Devotional service means attaining peace from all disturbances caused by material contamination. In other words, it is the process by which the mind is cooled. The mind can be peaceful and thoroughly cleansed when one no longer desires anything but devotional service. Even though all dirty things may be cleansed away, sometimes subtle desires remain in the mind. For impersonalism, monism, success, and the four principles of religious activity, dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, all these are like spots on clean cloth. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also wanted to cleanse all these away. By his practical activity, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu informed us how to cleanse our hearts. Once the heart is cleansed, we should invite Lord Krishna, Lord Sri Krishna, to sit down, and we should observe the festival by distributing prasad and chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to teach every devotee by his personal behavior. Everyone who spreads the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepts a similar responsibility. The Lord was personally chastising and praising individuals in the course of the cleaning, and those who are engaged as acharyas must learn from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu how to train devotees by personal example. The Lord was very pleased with those who could cleanse the temple by taking out undesirable things accumulated within. This is called anartha nivritti, cleansing the heart of all unwanted things. Thus, the cleansing of the Gundicha Mandir was conducted by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to let us know how the heart should be cleansed and soothed to receive Lord Sri Krishna and enable him to sit within the heart without disturbance. Hare Krishna. I welcome if anyone would like to share any comments or realizations or ask any questions. Ladini Shakti.
Hare Krishna. I remember like a story with Srila Prabhupada. I don't know who, where, when. But the story is like Srila Prabhupada comes to a temple, and there are these brahmacharis, or like devotees in male bodies, and they are chanting Hare Krishna, and the temple is very unclean. And then Srila Prabhupada tells them like not to chant, but clean the temple. They're like, well, but we are chanting. And Prabhupada is like, no, your service is to clean first.
Yeah, I haven't heard that story, but to me, I've never heard that, but it sounds like Prabhupada. I mean, it sounds completely consistent with Prabhupada. But there's a statement from Prabhupada: if you don't have time to clean, it means you're in Maya.
Mm-hmm.
No, but you don't understand. I don't have time to clean because I'm chanting extra rounds and I'm on book distribution. No, if you don't have time, I'm pointing at you, and there are three fingers pointing at myself. So yeah, I need a few therapy sessions on this thing. But anyhow, if you don't have time to clean, like clean the ashram, clean your room, clean the kitchen, it means you're in Maya. Prabhupada was very clear about that. So the story you just told, I like it. It sounds like Prabhupada completely.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Paya.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand this better, the sentence that you pointed word Jiva Hinsa, envy of other living entities, actually mean stopping the preaching of Krishna consciousness. Like, I'm not, I guess, my understanding of it is that, like, if I was envying another living entity, that means that I've stopped Krishna consciousness. I don't know if there's like something in the like preaching part that I might be missing.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your highlighting that sentence, which I did read twice. Thank you, Paya. Yes. Okay. So, so first of all, we can replace the term preaching with sharing, because for some people, preaching can have this emotionally charged connotation, like in a top-down way. But sharing. You and I recently discussed the analogy of rearranging the chairs on the deck of the Titanic. Okay. So it means like, so it means like, what are we doing when we're with people? What are we doing, and why are we doing it? Whether it's family members or people at our job or our office or at the post office or whatever. What are we doing? And in Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada describes, actually, if we're spending time with people, whether in good humor time or whether in discussion or whatever, if we're spending time with people and we're not supporting them in self-realization, we're doing violence. We're doing violence. Basically, that avyarta kalatva, the spirit of a devotee is a devotee doesn't want to waste even one moment outside of cultivating and sharing Krishna consciousness. So human life especially, each moment is so precious, so valuable. And if I spend time with other people and I'm not supporting them in self-realization, realizing who I am is not the body, spirit, soul, and who I am is Jivara, Srupai, Krishnara, Nityadas, eternal servants of Krishna. Because that's the para upakara. That's how to really help people. Not to just rearrange the chairs on the deck of the Titanic to make material arrangements, and then we're still suffering in emptiness and misery and desperation. So if I spend time with people and I'm not supporting them in coming to who they are as spiritual servants of Krishna, then I'm doing violence. And if I'm doing violence to someone, it means like I'm envying your very right to live. Just like if I'm eating meat, then basically I envy your very right to exist. You only exist for my enjoyment, so that my tongue and belly can enjoy. So it's like envy of animals. I envy your right to exist. You should be destroyed for my bodily enjoyment. So it's more subtle. But if I spend time with someone and I'm not somehow or other, it could be through silence, it could be through the sound vibration when I say good morning, but somehow or other, if I'm not creating value in an enduring eternal way, then that's violence. And that's because I'm envying them. I'm wasting their time. So that's my understanding.
So in a way, yeah, thank you for sharing that. That helps a lot. And then it gives me also the perspective. It's like, well, if I'm in relation with someone, if I'm wasting their time or wasting both of our time by not supporting them in self-realization, just, hamster wheel in a way, rearranging the chairs on the
hamster wheel, another very good imagery. Yeah, and I like how you said that. I'm wasting my own time too.
Yes.
I'm envious. That's in the Bhagavatam. That term is used. One is envious of themselves. That if we're wasting our time outside of Krishna consciousness, outside of self-realization, it shows envy of our very self. Because our self is glorious, blissful, like that. But we're just like dooming ourselves to suffer and wallow in fetid mud. It's like an envy of our own glorious nature.
I feel like I have a lot more to unpack with this, but I'm grateful for that unpacking. And it aligns with something that someone recently shared, that I wanted to share a short story. So this was I felt so perfectly timed. Somebody shared with Kwan that they felt like I was never happy. That I lived a life of like not enjoying the material life. So I'm always on a search, or not a search. You just particularly though is Piles doesn't know how to be happy. That was his words. And it impacted me. And I felt like, well, wait a minute. Do I not? You know, I shared with you that Kwan had a successful thing in his job, and so I was like, and I didn't feel that like rush. Yeah. And I looked at him and I was like, well, is he right? Okay. Am I not like? Am I not able to be happy in life? Like, here's this material thing that just appeared in my life, in my family's life, and I'm not experiencing happiness. Yeah. And from today, what I'm able to reflect for myself, yes, the person shared what they shared, but I feel like what I'm doing is attempting to clean my heart. Yeah. Attempting. Like it's still a process, but I'm starting to look deeper into my heart and wanting God to live in my heart. And because I was looking at the comparison. This is a person that loves, and no judgment, of course, but he loves material things. Yeah. He wants to live a life of just enjoying material life.
That's his orientation.
Yeah. So, and when you shared that until you read Prabhupada's books, that's you didn't think there was a need for cleaning of your heart. Yeah. And I think there was a part of me that thought for a moment, like, well, maybe he's in a way a realized soul. Like maybe he's figured it out. He's simple. Okay. And he can be happy. But I'm starting to understand it may be a lack of awareness, like a lack of understanding that there are things to clean within all of our hearts. And this is showing me that, I'm not pretending that I'm perfect or that I have it figured out. I'm attempting to. So thank you for today. I'm very grateful to be here.
Thank you, Paya. I very much appreciate your comments very much. And in the Bhagavatam, it's described there are two happy people. Well, one is either the fool or the pig wallowing in mud. Pig looks pretty happy in mud, and the fool. The other happy person is the Paramahamsa, a truly realized soul, truly realized in who they are, free from material desire, full of only spiritual desire to serve Krishna, clean heart. In between the fool, pig and mud, and the Paramahamsa, it's suffering, misery, and disturbance. So I'm sad to say, Payal, you are in the path of the Paramahamsa, right? So you're not satisfied to be so meaning so in between, because we have enough knowledge to know that, oh yes, we just rearranged this chair, but we're on the Titanic, this thing's gone down. Yeah, we just did a big deal in the sales, or okay, the weather's nice today. And just like, okay, but man, for this actual who I am. At the same time, our heart's not fully cleansed like a Paramahamsa. I remember this was 2.5 years ago. I was conducting an advanced seminar in Switzerland. And I remember one fellow, young fellow, maybe about 30 years old, and he got up in front of the ark on day 3 of the advanced seminar. And he started sharing, he said, when this seminar began, I was happy. It was very grave. When this seminar began, I was happy. And then here I am, we're in the middle of the seminar, my happiness is gone, destroyed. He actually wasn't regretting that he took the seminar, because now he's on the path of the Paramahamsa, which means that, we're not going to be foolishly happy with just like the flickering lights. No, we want the real thing. At least that's the path, and then that requires heavy lifting. Thank you, Paya. Bhakti Keith.
Hello, is my sound working?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, just in the connection between cleanliness and purity. Well, before I was going to say that, was this story came up about Prabhupada. You know, he's going around and visiting the different temples, and he'd show up and be like, you know, everybody would be in such a frenzy to get everything ready for him. And he shows up and he's like, why is it everywhere I go, it smells like paint? You know. And then there was another funny story that I heard that he went to this one temple where they did everything. They just made sure that the whole place was just immaculate, you know, everything painted and just from top to bottom. And they went up, and eventually they went up on the roof, and they moved the door, and behind the door somebody put a pile of dirt there and they forgot to clean it up. And he was like, aha, pointed it out and chastised him, you know. I don't know if you heard that story, but maybe somebody made it up, I don't know, but it was yeah, pretty funny about the situation that can arise with doing the cleaning and all that stuff. Then the ego can come up. Oh, look what I did, you know. And then it creates a situation where our impurities can be highlighted like that, the false ego and stuff. So anyway, that's my sharing.
Thanks for sharing, Keith. Yeah, yeah, the one with the wherever Prabhupada one freshly painted. That sounds true. So the idea is cleanliness internally and externally as a way of being. As a way of being. I mean, it's nice to get everything together for a special occasion. That's nice. At the same time, the idea is sattva, because it's described like rajas means creation, tamas is destruction, and even creation, we all know creation is relatively easier than sattva means maintenance. And one thing, it's like, yeah, I did it, I created this. Okay, now to maintain, that requires more strength. That's a deeper consciousness. So it's one thing to get everything clean for a special occasion, which is nice to have a maha cleanup once in a while. But the idea is, again, I'm pointing the finger at myself here, but to maintain steady standards of sattvic cleanliness, that's really the consciousness to invite Krishna to sit in our hearts and to sit in our homes. Thank you, Bhakti Keith, for your comments. Jai, thank you. Needle. Pin, needle, yeah, thank you. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
Bye.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.